In a dramatic operation, the United States has escalated its global crackdown on sanctioned oil trafficking, intercepting multiple tankers linked to Venezuela's so-called dark fleet. The most recent seizure involves the MT Sophia, a stateless and sanctioned motor tanker apprehended in international waters, according to U.S. Southern Command. Video released by the U.S. military shows the tanker being intercepted without incident during a coordinated operation involving the Department of War and the Department of Homeland Security. U.S. officials confirmed the vessel had been operating in international waters and was allegedly involved in illicit activities across the Caribbean Sea. While full details remain classified, authorities say the ship is now under U.S. Coast Guard escort and heading toward the United States, where its final disposition will be decided. This operation is part of a broader campaign under what the Pentagon calls Operation Southern Spear, aimed at dismantling illegal networks operating across the Western Hemisphere. The message from Washington is clear. Sanctioned oil trafficking will be confronted anywhere in the world. A Reuters report said MT Sophia was flagged to Panama, and the vessel had departed Venezuelan waters earlier this month and was sailing in dark mode with its transponder turned off as part of a fleet transporting Venezuelan oil to China in defiance of U.S. sanctions. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the vessel was either last docked in Venezuela or en route there, reinforcing U.S. claims that the seizure is part of a coordinated effort to choke off sanctioned oil exports. At the center of this story is Venezuela's dark fleet, a network of tankers that conceal their identities and movements to evade sanctions. These ships disable tracking systems, spoof locations, change flags, or operate without clear registration. Similar shadow fleets are used by heavily sanctioned states like Russia and Iran to move oil beyond the reach of Western enforcement. That global dimension came into sharp focus with another high-profile seizure just hours before, the Russian-flagged oil tanker Marinara, previously known as Bella 1. After weeks of pursuit, U.S. Special Forces commandeered the vessel in the North Atlantic for alleged violations of U.S. sanctions tied to Venezuela, Russia, and Iran. Russian state media reported U.S. forces boarded the ship from a helicopter during the operation. Tracking data showed the tanker nearing Iceland's economic zone when it was seized. Moscow reacted angrily, accusing Washington of violating international maritime law and freedom of navigation. Russia's foreign ministry demanded humane treatment of Russian nationals aboard and warned the U.S. not to delay their return. But the White House says the crew of the vessel seized by the U.S. may be subject to prosecution.
The U.S. seized a tanker recently. Russia specifically asked the United States not to seize that tanker. Does this action risk a larger conflict with Russia?
I believe you're referring to the Bella 1 tanker that was seized this morning. The Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security, in coordination with the Department of War, did announce that seizure this morning for violations of U.S. sanctions. I've spoken about the enforcement of our sanctions policy at the podium prior to the new year, and this administration is going to fully enforce the sanction policy of the United States. The vessel this morning was seized in the North Atlantic pursuant to a warrant issued by a U.S. federal court after being tracked. And this was a Venezuelan shadow fleet vessel that has transported sanctioned oil. And the United States of America, under this president, is not going to tolerate that. I would also just add the vessel had a judicial seizure order, and the crew, so that means the crew is now subject to prosecution for any applicable violation of federal law, and they will be brought to the United States for such prosecution if necessary. answer that question. I don't want to make new policy at this podium today with respect to Venezuela. With respect to the two ships that you mentioned, I spoke with you about the Bella 1. There was another vessel this morning, the Sophia, that in coordination with the Department of War, the Department of Homeland Security apprehended it. This is a stateless, sanctioned, dark fleet motor tanker, and this occurred without incident. This vessel was operating in international waters and conducting illicit activities in the Caribbean Sea. The U.S. Coast Guard is escorting the Sophia to the United States for final disposition. To answer your question, Kelly, directly, this was through Operation Southern Spear. The Department of War is unwavering in its mission to crush illicit activity in the Western Hemisphere. And as the President has repeatedly stated, we're going to defend our homeland and restore security and strength across the Americas.
Meanwhile, the United Kingdom confirmed it had provided military support to the operation, including basing, naval assistance, and aerial surveillance, calling the tanker part of a global sanctions evasion network with a nefarious history. Online reactions have been sharply divided. Some critics accused the U.S. of acting like maritime pirates, while others praised the seizures as a long overdue show of strength. One post summed up the hardline MAGA view: no more messing around with America's security. Act like the power we are. What's clear is this: Washington calls such operations security. Critics call it piracy with a flag, armed seizures, global pursuit, and raw power replacing diplomacy on the world's oceans.